Alright, so let's create our first language file and translate our text into maybe German. Alright, so I am going to do create a first German translation file. So I have already created the directory here, which is the DE. Now first of all, let's change the locale, the default locale of our language, to DE, and then let's create a file called general. Maybe you can give it any name, but I will name it as general.php. Alright, now let's return an array, and this array will contain the key and values. So for an instance, I want to translate this title of the banner, and then I want to translate it into the German title here. So what I want to do is basically I will maybe just give that name any key name. So I will say ctx_01 just for an example, and here I will copy this translation file, this translated text, and paste it here. Now all I need to do is basically I need to go inside our main view file, which is basically home.blade.php, and inside that where we have banner, so let's open it up. And here let's replace this title of longer text. So let me see, yeah, this one is the correct one. So let's actually replace this thing with our language file. And how we can use the language files or language words here by using the underscore. So 2 times underscore, and then in curly brackets, and inside the brackets I want to point out to my file here. So my file exists in the German, so I will say general dot, and the dot would be this key here. So the first would be my file name, and the second would be the key I want to replace. So I will use this key here. Now if I go back and reload the page, I should see the translated word, and now you can see the translation is basically done here. Now that's really an easy way, and that's really cool way of creating the language files. And now I can create any multiple languages, multiple translations into German. So for an instance, let me copy this one and paste it here, and let's copy this one here, and let's go to our journal here. Let's maybe rename this to ctx2. You can actually give this any key name, so this doesn't mean like you have to define the ctx1 or ctx2, but just for an example, I'm just using these names. So all I can do is basically I can replace this one from here, and underscore brackets, and that would be the general.ctx2. Now if I reload, you can see the translation has been done for us. Now let's, for an example, we want to pass a dynamic variable or a dynamic input to our language file. For an example, let's say I want to pass the title, and I would say like welcome back, and then the name of the user. For an example, let me create another h1 here, and I want to say welcome back, and that should be like my own name, Walid Ikhlaq. Now if I reload the page, what I want is basically I want this one to be the dynamic in our language file. So first of all, let's copy this one and translate it. So let me just translate it, and this is basically how we are going to translate it. And inside our general, I will define ctx_3, and that would be this one. Now let me use this thing and replace the welcome back here. So underscore general.ctx3. If I reload the page, I see that this is translated, but this is still basically not dynamic. Alright, I can actually display the word here or the logged in user name here by using the auth user and name there, by using chaining the methods in Laravel. But what I want is basically I want to pass an input to this translation file. Alright, I don't want this to hard code here, or I don't want the Laravel way doing this. All I want is basically I want to pass the input to this translation or to this key, all I can do is basically inside our general, I can accept a name here like so. And by doing so, what I can do is basically I can remove this thing from here, my name, and let's just cut from here and just pass it as a variable like so. Now if I reload the page, I still see my name here, but this time this is being passed dynamically to this variable, to this context here, and I can change my name to just maybe one word here, and if I reload, you can see the name is coming dynamically. Now this is a one way of doing a file, doing a translation. So all I did is basically I tried to translate my website into German language, and what I did is basically I declared the default language to German, and then I used the German language translation file. Now what if my application supports multiple languages? Alright, so how can I actually do the multiple language functionality in the application? Maybe give links here to convert the website into English or to German and stuff like that. So how we can actually achieve this by using Laravel? So with Laravel, it's really easy, we can achieve this. But before that, you must need to make sure that any file that any website that you want to have multiple translations, you must make sure that the translation file must exist in the translation directory, and then these keys also does exist. If those keys doesn't exist, what will Laravel do is basically this will automatically print only this key without any value, because the value might not exist in our second language file. For an example, I have an English here, so I create another file of general.php, and let me copy everything from here and paste it here. Now let's, for an instance, this does not exist, this key does not exist all of a whole. So what will do Laravel is basically the Laravel will only print this key as a string, because there is no translation exist to this string. So Laravel will automatically print this key without throwing any error. So that's a good approach, but you also need to make sure that all the keys exists. Now the CTX one, let's translate back all our languages to from German to English. Alright, now since I have translated everything into English, how can I actually achieve the multi-lingual functionality in our website? So first of all, let's display the two basically the links here, and clicking on each link, the Laravel, we will change the Laravel default localization. So first of all, let's go to our, maybe in our home we have the top bar. Now inside the top bar, before this sign up button here, let's display, maybe let's copy this link from here, and I will say it as English and then German, just for an instance. Now if I reload the page, I see English and German here, so maybe let's put it before this search icon and put some spaces in between as well. So quickly I will do is basically I will use the style and margin right to 15 pixels, just for an example. So we have English and German here. Now once I click on that, I want this translation to be automatically changed to German 5. Now before doing so, let's give this a name here. So let's give this a path. So we have let me open our web.php and let's see what we gave the route a name. So we have where is our view here? So view controller, this one. So we gave this name of home. So all I want is basically in our top menu, I will give this a route, and then I will say, let's say set locale, and inside that I want to accept a locale here. All right, so I will set this to English. So this one will go for the English, and then the next I want to set locale for German. Route set locale, and the locale or the translation would be in this case it would be our DE. All right, now let's define a route quickly here, and I will set this to set locale, and let's remove the middleware everything from here since we do not need anything right now. And let's set a function of locale. Now inside our this function, let's create inside our controller, let's create a function of set underscore locale. Now this accepts a locale, so I will pass it as string and $locale. Now in order to convert this, first of all let me paste a quick code here and I will explain it what it does basically. So this function will check if the locale exists maybe in English, Spanish or French. So in that case we have English and DE, so we are not going to use that. FR, I just put this copied this code from the Laravel official documentation, and what it does is basically if this does not exist, let's throw an error of about 400, else if it exists, let's set the app locale. So this app would be the facade of the app. This is how this will work. And now let's actually, once we do that, return redirect back. All right, now let's try to see if everything works perfectly as we wanted. Now if I reload the page, we have an error here. Actually I made a little error here. So instead of just creating a function here, because this will not be a good practice and this will not work in that way, so let me remove the function from here, and instead of that all the code I have just put inside this index.php. and what I did here is basically this is accepting a locale of DE, so basically the default will be the German. And what I did is basically in our top bar menu I need to remove this route from here and just put the locale with a question mark. Now what this question mark will do, this question mark means that this is actually not necessary. This locale can be exist and cannot be exist. So once this will exist, so this will go to the index here and it will check if there is any locale provided. So this will set the locale. All right, and then once we go back to our URL and if I set to German, the endpoint would be the DE. Now this is basically the best way of handling the file system in Laravel or in any language that you are working with. Is like you must have to define the language file here, which is in our case this is DE. Now if I go to the English here, now you can see that everything is translated into English. Now how cool is that? Now that is basically you need to set the value or the default value for your language. So in that case we have the German. So if I do not enter anything and if I reload the page, now the default will be set to German. Now if I go to the English, so now we have English here. So this is basically a very best practice. Instead of like changing the language file and then redirecting it back to the main page, sometimes the sessions doesn't work properly and sometimes the translation does not work. So in order to cater that, you need to make sure that you enter the URL of your language in the URL here in order to avoid any discrepancies. So we have now summarized the localization, where we have talked about the different file structures of localization. The one is PHP and the other is JSON. Then we talked about how we can create multiple translation files and how we can pass dynamic values to the local translation files. And then finally we have seen how we can convert our language, our website from one language to another language using the app underscore set locale function. Now that's about it, and I will see you in the next one.